If you'd like to see more of our videos, hit the subscribe button to stay on top of the market news. Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Fred Razak at CMtrading. Today's October 26, 2020. And today is Monday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, the markets retraced right before election. So first, taking a look at the economic events of the day. Just one event coming out of the European Union. It's a German Ifo Business Climate number coming out that's sure to affect the euro. So looking at the Forex symbols, the British pound retraces and breaking down from its nice little spike last week, and euro pretty much unchanged until this number comes out. Looking at the indices, the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ both showing weakness before the actual elections coming out next week. Now remember, we're in the midst of a second wave in the Northern Hemisphere. Now looking at commodities, gold on the bottom range and oil breaking $39, perhaps of some of the sentiment what's happening in the second wave as markets and countries are looking to shut down and lock down. Looking at the stocks, we have a big week this coming up. Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google. And lastly, not less important, it's ExxonMobil, which is the largest oil company in the world, coming out on Friday. So lots of numbers coming out. We're starting out with Microsoft tomorrow, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook on Thursday, and Google as well. So we've got a lot of numbers. This is in the midst of a lot of news, a lot of uncertainty in the markets. So just be aware. Lastly, looking at the cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin holding above 13,000. We mentioned that last week. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So we're going to first take a look at the GBP USD at a 4-hour chart. You can see we pretty much recoiled from our nice little breakout last week. This is a point for it to be a support level, 130-ish level. So keep this in mind if this does bounce later today. Now this Ifo Climate business number coming out later today should affect even the GBP because the euro is affected by the dollar as well. So just keep that in mind. Now looking at the Rand, okay, it did break that level at 116.41, but we did recoil to that second support level, so just be aware of that. I'm going to highlight that right there. And so it hasn't really broken it down, okay? But if it does use this 16.41 as a resistance-ish area, we could possibly see it further break down and the dollar getting weaker. Now looking at gold, we've changed our upwards trend line to a bona fide range-bound trading area, okay? The lower range, 1890-ish level, and the higher range, 1914-ish level. And for now, that's where we're at until there's some sort of breakout. Now, looking at oil breaking down, look at that. From $39, we were trading within this range for quite some time, okay? And finally breaking it down. Not a good graph of it, but, you know, nevertheless, you could see it a little bit clearer there. And finally breaking it down. Now, this is really on the back of the fact that most countries are now in lockdown or in second lockdown because of the second wave. And so there's going to be much less demand for oil. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to go back to the teens necessarily, but nevertheless, the markets have taken this into account that the markets and the countries are shutting down. Now, looking at the Dow Jones, breaking 28,000 as we're breaking further down to 27,960. Now, this is, we tested this last week and we had this, I guess you could call it a rally or a bounce rather, okay? But nevertheless, we're at that bottom of the range going into this week, okay? So I'm showing some weakness going into this week. NASDAQ not yet breaking it, but this is a very important number for NASDAQ, 11,587, as this was previous resistance several times. And so this is something to consider going into this week. Now, looking at the major components, okay? Apple is trading further down. Facebook, okay, holding itself up at 283. Okay, Microsoft coming up with earnings tomorrow, holding itself at 215. So everything is, I guess you could say, trading at par or close to it. Now remember, this is a hurricane of different news. Number one, we've got the pandemic happening. Number two, we've got the elections happening. And number three, we've got all these massive numbers coming out for these corporate earnings. So just be aware from the fact that it's going to be a choppy market, okay? It's going to be quite sensitive to any kind of news that's coming out. So it might be even an environment that's going to be a little bit difficult to trade. Okay, so forearmed is forewarned, and you want to know that these numbers are coming out. Now, lastly, looking at Bitcoin, look at that, 13,000 and holding itself up. Now, if we look at a 4-hour chart, you could see it really ran and went. Now, we're seeing some resistance at this 13,000, not pushing even further, but I'd like to see some continuation. Okay, the last time we hit this was 2019 of last year. Okay, so that was the top of the market where the market actually rallied into the end of that summer. Now, if this does break 13,500, guess what? We could go back to the 18,000 level. And seeing that everybody is trying to put away money from the equity markets, from commodities, from bonds, from equity markets, now this may be a second coming for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as we enter the second part of this pandemic. Okay, so just keep that in mind and keep this abreast on your radar. Okay, this is Fred Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.